Welcome to History in Focus. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more historical content. Also, let me know in the comments which moment impacted you the most. Enjoy the video. This elegant photograph from February 27, 1954, captures the sophisticated fashion of the 1950s. The woman, dressed in a raspberry silk suit designed by Michael, showcases the decade's graceful style with a sailor collar, bow, and lightly padded sleeves. This vintage family portrait captures Myron and Alice Herrig Adams along with their children in the early 1900s. The formal attire, including bow ties, high-collared dresses, and neat hairdos, reflects the era's emphasis on dignity and family values. Photographs like this offer a glimpse into the past, preserving the essence of family life and fashion in early 20th century America. This photograph captures the elegance of Edwardian fashion between 1900 and 1910, an era known for its refinement, strict social norms, and opulent style. The large hats adorned with feathers and the long dresses reflect the cultural emphasis on status and decorum during the reign of Edward VII. These outfits, worn by the wealthy, symbolize the luxury and excesses of the time while maintaining an air of formality. In the early 1900s, women's fashion underwent significant changes. At the start of the decade, skirts flared out at the hemline and were fitted at the waist. As time went on, straighter, tailored suits became fashionable, marking a departure from the once popular corseted silhouettes. French designer Paul Poiret's revolutionary corset-free designs introduced more relaxed, flowing styles that prioritized comfort and mobility, setting the stage for the fashion trends of the 1920s. This evolution of style reflected a broader cultural shift toward practicality in clothing, especially for women who participated in sports like tennis, cycling, and horseback riding. The Edwardian era was marked by extravagant hats and equally elaborate hairstyles. Women of the time often wore wide-brimmed, heavily embellished hats, which required carefully structured hairstyles to hold their shape. Popular hairdos included the full pompadour, where hair was swept loosely up into coils or buns, often supplemented with braids or hairpieces to add volume and structure. These hats and hairstyles became a symbol of the era's elegance and high social expectations. In the early 1900s, men typically wore three-piece suits with high, round-collared white shirts, accessorized with neckties and derby or bowler hats. The clean-shaven look was fashionable, although some men sported impressive mustaches that curled upwards at the ends, giving a signature style of the era. Whether they were headed to work or social events, these looks symbolized sophistication and status. In the early 1900s, summertime offered men the opportunity to switch to lighter linen or flannel suits, perfect for staying cool in the heat. Topped with a straw boater or Panama hat, these suits provided a more casual yet stylish option for the warmer months. For recreation, men opted for sport-specific attire such as golf, motorcycling, tennis, or baseball gear, ensuring they were dressed appropriately for both style and function. This image showcases Second Lieutenant Lord Francis Scott, who would later rise to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. His uniform reflects the military fashion of the early 1900s, with its structured design, ceremonial accessories, and the dignified air that characterized officers of the time. This wedding photo of John Calvin Williams and Louisa Susanna Davis from 1900 showcases the formal attire of the time. The bride's dress reflects the classic elegance of the era, with its high neckline, lace details, and long sleeves, while the groom is dressed in a sharp formal suit, complete with a waistcoat and boutonniere. This family portrait captures the James Clinton Neal and Sarah Rachel Coop family in the early 1900s, showcasing the practical and rugged clothing typical of rural American life at the time. The photograph reflects a simpler era, where durable fabrics and modest designs were essential for daily activities in both work and family gatherings. This vintage portrait from 1900 shows Daniel and Julia Sullivan in elegant attire of the era. Daniel's formal suit and Julia's delicate gown, complete with a fashionable hat, reflect the style trends of the turn of the century. Captured in Chicago, this photo illustrates the refined and formal nature of couples' portraiture in the early 20th century. This photograph from circa 1900 features Fabiola Lavoie in Butte, Montana, elegantly dressed while holding an accordion. Her attire reflects the modest yet stylish fashion of the time, and the accordion she is holding adds a cultural and musical touch, symbolizing the importance of music in everyday life during this period. Captured on their wedding day, September 24, 1900, this elegant photo of Albert Myers and Edna Claudia showcases the timeless fashion of the era. Edna wears a delicate white gown with lace detailing, holding a bouquet, while Albert dons a classic formal suit. Their poised expressions reflect the seriousness and importance of this special occasion. Glenna Carilla Browning, born in 1893, is captured here in her youth, showcasing the popular fashion trends of the early 1900s. Her checked blouse and fitted pinafore represent the simplicity and elegance that defined the style of young women at the time. The large ribbon in her hair adds a playful and youthful touch to her appearance. This portrait of Harriet Ansbach captures the essence of early 1900s elegance. Born in 1889, Harriet is seen wearing a modest yet stylish high-neck blouse with delicate embroidered details. The soft waves in her hair, tied with a simple ribbon, complement her youthful grace. This photograph is a classic representation of the refined fashion of the era, showcasing modesty and sophistication. This charming photograph of young Ward Resin Maynard captures the essence of childhood in the early 1900s. Dressed in a large bow-tied suit jacket, Ward stands proudly with his bicycle, symbolizing the growing popularity of cycling during this era. This striking portrait from the early 1900s features a woman dressed in classic Edwardian fashion, highlighted by her magnificent oversized hat adorned with a large bow. The puffed sleeves and high-necked blouse showcase the elegance and formal style of the period, where women's fashion emphasized elaborate hats and sophisticated silhouettes. This charming portrait from 1900 captures the Zion sisters, dressed in the classic, modest children's fashion of the time. Their simple yet elegant outfits, accompanied by their serious expressions, reflect the reserved nature of formal photography during this era. This serene photograph captures the Bentley sisters, Sarah Tyndale and Sarita, taken around 1900. Dressed in elegant lace and floral patterns, the sisters are engaged in what appears to be a quiet conversation amidst a natural garden setting. Their fashionable, high-collared blouses and carefully styled hair reflect the refined feminine style of the early 20th century, highlighting the grace and poise typical of the era. This heartwarming image from 1905 shows the Welge siblings, Marguerite, Morton, and Margarita, dressed in cozy winter attire alongside their loyal family dog. Their coats, fur-trimmed collars, and large bows are characteristic of early 20th century children's fashion. This portrait of Thirza Irene Swank captures her around the age of 11, taken in 1909. Her attire reflects the early 1900s fashion for young girls, with a high-necked blouse and a pinafore dress. The slightly formal look and serious expression showcase the traditional style of portraiture from this period, emphasizing modesty and simplicity. This elegant portrait of Sarah Norma Sally Whitley, born in 1881, features her wearing an iconic Edwardian-era hat, adorned with elaborate floral decorations. The fashionable hat, along with her serene posture and refined clothing, perfectly captures the grace and elegance of early 1900s women's fashion. This historic photograph from 1902 showcases Mrs. Ida E. Gladden's advanced students in dressmaking in Greenville, South Carolina. These women represent the strength, skill, and resilience of African American women in the post-Reconstruction era, where fashion and craftsmanship were symbols of progress and empowerment. This striking image of students at Atlanta University around 1900 captures the elegance and confidence of African American women pursuing higher education during a time of profound social change. This powerful image captures a pivotal moment in American history, showing a group of determined African American suffragists in Georgia between 1910 and 1920. These women were part of the fight for voting rights, not just for women but particularly for women of color who faced both gender and racial discrimination. The banner, Headquarters for Colored Women Voters, symbolizes their resilience and advocacy during the suffrage movement. Photographed by John Johnson, this image showcases a powerful moment in the early 1900s, featuring an African American couple in Nebraska. Johnson captured the lives of African Americans and immigrants in his community, preserving their stories through photography. This portrait reflects the dignity, strength, and resilience of its subjects, providing a rare look into African American life during a time of great social change in the United States. This captivating image from early 1900s, Nebraska features two well-dressed African American gentlemen, showcasing the elegance and style of the era. The men, in tailored suits, complete with hats and pocket watches, demonstrate pride in their appearance, exuding confidence and sophistication. Their attire reflects the fashion trends of the early 20th century, which placed great emphasis on formal, well-groomed looks, particularly within African American communities that strive to break social barriers. This striking portrait of Kai Leaks, taken in 1910, exemplifies the elegance and refined fashion of the early 20th century. Her delicate lace dress, high collar, and defined waist reflect the era's emphasis on modesty and structured silhouettes. The choice of soft, intricate details in her dress demonstrates the emerging trends in women's fashion, moving towards a more sophisticated and graceful style. This portrait of Maggie Lena Walker, taken in 1910, captures the strength and elegance of one of the most prominent African American businesswomen and social activists of her time. Walker became the first woman to charter a bank in the United States, and her leadership helped uplift the African American community. Her dress, adorned with a string of pearls and medallions, reflects her stature and success, while her confident pose embodies her pioneering spirit. This photograph from the late 1910s showcases a woman dressed in a tailored traveling suit, perfectly suited for the long train or boat journeys of the era. Her sturdy luggage and practical attire, combined with a wide-brimmed hat for sun protection, reflect the growing mobility and independence of women in the early 20th century. This 1919 photograph captures a young Regina Andrews sitting by a delicate wooden table, exuding both elegance and a playful charm. Her outfit, with its intricate lace details, reflects the trends of the post-World War I era, where fashion was beginning to shift towards more relaxed and comfortable styles. Her relaxed posture, paired with a warm smile, evokes a sense of joy and optimism, a snapshot of the hopeful spirit of the time. This photograph highlights two men dressed in the finest late Edwardian era fashion, capturing the sophistication of the early 1900s. The man on the left is wearing a dark, pinstriped suit with a bowler hat, accessorized with a cane and gloves, a true representation of formality. Meanwhile, the man on the right dons a light-colored three-piece suit paired with a boater hat, emphasizing the fashion transition towards more casual elegance in men's clothing. This candid photograph captures a fashionable couple in 1919. The woman is dressed in a long, elegant coat adorned with fur around the collar, holding a stylish bag that completes her sophisticated look. Beside her, the man is sporting a well-tailored suit and a hat, embodying the charm of early 20th century men's fashion. Behind them is a classic car, adding to the period's ambiance and hinting at the modernity creeping into their lives. This photograph from 1903 shows the Spencer sisters, perfectly dressed in the high-necked blouses and long skirts that were fashionable during the early 1900s. Their matching outfits emphasize the formal styles of the time, with ankle-length skirts that were common during this decade. The emphasis on modesty, with skirts often touching the ground, reflects the era's fashion norms. This 1911 postcard humorously showcases the hobble skirt, a fashionable yet impractical style of the 1910s. The hobble skirt was so tight around the ankles that it limited walking speed, earning it the nickname speed limit skirt. While fashionable for a brief time, it was clearly not suited for working women or those needing practical movement. The hobble skirt is a reminder of how fashion often prioritized aesthetics over functionality, especially during this pre-war era. In this 1927 photo, actress Norma Shearer epitomizes the flapper fashion of the 1920s. Clothes during this decade became less restrictive, with loose, shapeless dresses that embraced a boyish style. The flapper dress was at the height of popularity, allowing women more freedom of movement, reflecting the progressive attitudes of the time. Hemlines were on the rise, though still modest by today's standards, falling just below the knees. In this 1931 photo, Mary Pickford stands with a companion, showing off the more conservative style of the 1930s. During this decade, hemlines lengthened to fall between the knees and ankles, offering a more modest look. The waistline returned to its natural position, and garments became more feminine with the inclusion of zippers, which were becoming popular. The ready-to-wear fashion industry was beginning to emerge, but access to this trend was still limited to certain groups. This 1940s family photo captures three women standing side by side, illustrating the era's popular fashion trends. Hemlines rose to just below the knees, A-line skirts became prominent, and boxy shoulders with nipped-in waists were the style. Post-World War II fashion reflected a blend of practicality and femininity, as women returned to more structured but still practical garments. This family photo from the 1950s reflects the post-war fashion trends, where more fabric was used in dresses. T-length dresses with soft shoulders, cinched waistlines, and full skirts were popular. These garments aimed to emphasize an hourglass figure, and foundation garments were worn to perfect the body shape. The smiles and relaxed postures in this picture capture the sense of family closeness and the optimism of the era. The 1960s brought even more changes in fashion than the previous decade. Teenagers of the 60s wanted to distinguish themselves from their parents, leading to a significant gap between the styles of young people and mature women. While older generations were content with variations of 1950s clothing, teenagers craved change. This image of a young girl skipping rope captures the essence of youthful rebellion and the carefree spirit of the era. Hemlines continued to rise in the early 70s, with dresses becoming so short that they barely covered anything. This image shows a young couple dressed for a night out, reflecting the fashion of the time. The man's velvet jacket and patterned tie, paired with the woman's mini dress, represent the popular trends of the era, emphasizing a casual yet stylish look for a night at the movies. In the 1910s, lighter fabrics and simpler suits grew in popularity. By the latter half of the 1910s, a man's daytime suit consisted of a straightforward single-breasted jacket with narrow lapels and high buttons. This was paired with straight trousers, presenting a clean and professional look that became a staple for men's fashion of the era.